My name is Tori Townsend. I'm 34 years old, and last December 31st, my family told me not to come to New Year's Eve because I'd make everyone uncomfortable. So I spent it alone, in my apartment, with a half-eaten pear and a laptop I wasn't allowed to open for another 9 hours because of quiet period rules my lawyers had drilled into me for weeks. I was fine. The kind of fine a woman learns to be when her family has been uninviting her for decades, and she has finally stopped flinching. Then, at 12:01 a.m., my brother called. Not my mother, not my father. My brother. His voice was the voice of a man who had just watched a freight train leave the station without him. "What did you do?" "Dad just saw the news and he's not breathing right." I told him to call an ambulance. I did not tell him I'd been preparing for this moment for 7 years. Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, take a second to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read them all. Now, let me take you back to December 29th, 3 days before the bell. The text came in at 7:42 a.m., which is the hour my mother has always preferred for delivering bad news. Early enough that you can't yet argue, late enough that she's already on her second coffee. "Honey, we've decided smaller is better this year. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable with all the stress." I read it 3 times. Stress was her code. It had been her code since I was 14. It meant, we don't want Preston to feel small. It meant, you have something. Please hold it somewhere else. For any of you who have been the oldest daughter of an oldest daughter, you know the silence I'm talking about. It isn't a silence in the room. It's the silence that comes after you've spoken, and the family reroutes. 15 years of gatherings had trained me for this text. Thanksgivings where my seat drifted to the kids' table at 30. Birthdays where my mother said, "Let's not make it about you this year, honey. Preston is going through a season." A graduation where my father checked his phone through my walk. I typed back, "Got it. Happy New Year." I put the phone face down on the counter. Not out of anger. Out of the old reflex. The one you develop when you've learned that your reaction is the thing your family will weaponize next. Then I opened my laptop. Not to work. Work was locked. I typed a long string of numbers into a tab, checked a record I had checked every few weeks for 7 years. Still my name. Only my name. I closed the tab. I didn't know it yet, but my brother was, at that exact moment, dialing a reporter. In my experience, mothers who call you honey before 9 in the morning are not delivering honey. The office was the kind of empty that happens only between Christmas and New Year's. Like a theater after a matinee, with the lights still hot. Maren was already in. 41, ex-Goldman, Chanel flats. She had left the bank because, her words, she had grown tired of men explaining spreadsheets to her. She sat at the long table by the window, bagel in one hand, a thick stack of paper in front of her. "You look like a woman who got a text," she said. I slid the phone across. 4 seconds. "Good," she said. "One less thing to schedule around." That was Maren. She had a gift for shaving sentiment off a problem until only the edges were left. Quiet period ends 6:30 Friday, market open. Until then, you don't post, you don't comment, you don't breathe on a journalist. Understood? Understood. Under her stack of papers lay a slim gray binder I had asked her for last week, the patent file, filed in 2018. I didn't need to open it. I'd memorized the cover. "IPO in 4 days, Maren said. "Your family has 4 days to be weird. Don't let them." They already were. That's fine. They have to keep it to themselves. A banker Zoom was scheduled for 11:30. Lead counsel at noon. Roadshow closeout at 3. The bagels would carry us to lunch. Maren slid the D&O questionnaire across the desk the way a nurse slides a clipboard. "Sign it again," she said. "Just to sleep better." I signed it again. There is a specific kind of Christmas dinner silence that descends on a family when the daughter starts talking about something they don't understand, and my family specialized in it. December 2017. I was 26. I had quit Microsoft the week before. 3 months of savings. A prototype on a secondhand ThinkPad. A bad haircut. At the table, I tried to explain what I was building. A lightweight authentication layer that could run on hardware older than most of the cars my parents had ever owned. My father said, "That sounds like a lot." My mother said, "Honey, bring something that pays before you bring something that explains." Preston sat across from me in a ski sweater, already 3 glasses in. He listened to about 4 of my sentences. Then he said, around a mouthful of turkey, "Yeah, like, have you thought about just going B2C? I could hook you up with guys I know." That was his contribution. Not a suggestion. Not a question. A hook, delivered with cranberry sauce in his beard. My brother had 3 startups the way some men have 3 ex-wives. Each one his soulmate until it wasn't. A meal kit company in 2014. An NFT real estate platform in 2019. A whiskey subscription in 2022. Each round, my parents pulled from their retirement. Each close, they called it a learning experience. I drove back to my studio in Queens that night. I sat at the kitchen table, one leg short, a folded napkin wedged under it, and I wrote a 5-page spec. Then I opened the Connecticut Bar Association directory and sent a cold email to a patent attorney named Marisol Ainsworth. Preston's entire contribution to my company was the phrase, "Have you thought about B2C?" He said it with his mouth full. My father called me at 3 p.m., which was the first time in 6 months, and I knew, before I picked up, that he was billing someone for the thought. "Honey," he said, "I want you to understand something about family before you sign anything with Wall Street." "What are you talking about, Dad?" "I'm talking about the fact that family means sharing. Preston has been there from the beginning. Since that Christmas dinner." I felt my stomach drop a half-inch and then lock. "Dad, what are you saying?" "Just, there is no formal contract between you two, is there?" "There should be. And there should have been. These things tend to matter at a certain scale." My father was a trust and estate lawyer. He had retired last year to part-time, but he still answered his desk phone with the same flat, lawyer-pleasant tone. I heard it now, the one he used when clients asked him hard questions about dead parents. "I'll call you back," I said. I hung up. I wrote the time on a sticky note and stuck it inside the top drawer. 3:04 p.m. You always write down the time. My father had never hit me. He had never raised his voice above the level of a Sunday sermon. He had just forgotten me, systematically, since I was 9. My elementary school play. My college graduation. The week I moved out and broke my ankle on the stairs. He had remembered I had a company 4 days before it went public. Let me tell you something about lawyers who are also fathers. When they stop calling you sweetheart and start calling you honey, they're building a case. He said, there should be a contract. I wrote down the exact time. 3:04 p.m. You always write down the time. Mari picked up on the first ring, which she never does, and that told me she had been waiting for my family to move for about as long as I had. She was at a ski lodge in Stowe. I could hear a fire somewhere behind her and a child objecting to a sweater. Tori. My father just called? Start at the beginning. I gave her the text from Mom, the call from Dad, the Christmas dinner premise, the word contract. She let me finish. Then she said, "Forward me the text. Forward me the call log. Chedu, do not reply to either of them again today." Mari, your patent was filed in April 2018. Your invention assignment was executed January 2018, notarized, filed with the company formation. Your founder agreement dates February 2019. Every funding round since has named you as sole founder and sole inventor. 12 rounds, 4 auditors, 2 insurers. I know. They have nothing. I know. But they can make noise, and noise before an IPO is expensive noise. What do I do? Nothing. Not yet. Not until they make it public. Then we respond in writing, signed on letterhead. Never verbal, never emotional. We are accountants of truth this week. I wrote that down too. Under the 304. You did the boring thing for 7 years, Mari said. Now the boring thing saves you. She hung up. I stood at the kitchen counter, and the sun was going down over the Hudson, the kind of pale orange that turns apartment windows into slices of copper. We are accountants of truth this week, Mari said. It sounded like the title of a book I wished I had read at 23. My mother's emails arrive at the same time lightning does. Always at night. Always after she has convinced herself she is the storm. December 30th. 11:14 p.m. Subject line. You have never understood what I sacrificed. 600 words. I counted them later. She started with her 2019 heart surgery. She moved to the Christmas I hadn't come home because I was closing a Series B. She continued through a list of times she had put her body and her peace on the line for her children, always in the plural, because she never itemized. She ended with this. If you do not share a piece of this company with your brother, I don't know how I will live with watching him hurt. You know I have a heart condition. You are choosing Wall Street over your own mother. I read it once. I read it twice. I sat still for a long time, 20 minutes, maybe more, the kind of stillness that isn't peace, just dense. Then I got up and made tea. Tea is what you make when you don't want to be the woman you would be if you answered. I did not answer. I forwarded the email to Mari with one line, filed for the record. Mari sent back a thumbs-up emoji, which, for her, was a love letter. There is a kind of grief that mothers weaponize, and a kind of grief that mothers bear. The difference is whether you are allowed to ask questions. And if you've ever gotten that email, the one where your mother turns her surgery into collateral, you already know what I did next. I loved my family the way you love an old house, knowing which floorboards will give way if you step wrong, and stepping anyway, for years, until one morning you don't. I spent New Year's Eve alone, and that was fine, until Desmond called and told me exactly why I was alone. 9 o'clock at night. Tribeca, 14 floors up. A pear on a plate, a cup of Earl Grey. The laptop closed on the couch cushion beside me like a sleeping animal I wasn't allowed to pet. Desmond was my cousin, my mother's younger sister's son, 29. He lived in Seattle, worked in clean energy, had 2 daughters under 5. He was the only relative I had been able to count on for anything important since I was 20. He was whispering. His youngest was on his hip. I'm sorry they're doing this again, he said. I told Aunt Diane at Thanksgiving I thought it was bullshit. She didn't speak to me for 3 months. I know. Tori. Listen. Preston was drunk at Thanksgiving. He told me, he actually said this, watch the news around New Year's. Things are going to get interesting for my little sister. I closed my eyes. Des. I thought he was being a jerk. I didn't think he'd do anything. He's out of money, Des. I know. He's out of moves. I know. It's okay. It is not okay. It's handled. He was quiet for a second. I could hear his daughter ask if fireworks were loud. Happy New Year, Tor. Happy New Year, Des. I hung up. The fireworks had already started somewhere over the Hudson. Small booms, far, soft. And if you've ever sat alone on New Year's Eve because your family called you uncomfortable, the next part is for you. At 12:01 the phone would ring, but at 9:14 that night, I already knew what was coming. The phone rang at 1 minute past midnight, and I knew, the way you know a fever before the thermometer, that my brother had lit the match hours earlier. Preston. His name on the screen. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. What did you do? His voice was running, skipping air. Dad just saw the news and he's not breathing right. What news? The Bloomberg thing. It aired an hour ago. It was supposed to be just an angle. Dad lost it. My hand went cold. I set the pair down. Preston, where is Dad? He's on the couch. He can't. Call 911, now. Tori, tell me what to. Hang up. Call 911. I hung up first. I made my hand put the phone on the cushion. I made my breath wait. Then I opened the laptop. Reading didn't break quiet period rules. I went to Bloomberg.com and typed my brother's name. It was the top clip. Year-end tech roundup. Tape delayed. First aired 7:15 a.m., December 31st. Repeated 11 p.m. The broadcast my father would have been half watching on the TV above the fireplace, while my mother fixed appetizers for people who hadn't wanted me there. The title card read, "The sister-brother duo behind Revenant Lattice's quiet rise." Under it, my brother's face. He was wearing the silk tie I had bought him for his 35th birthday, the year I still thought we were on the same team. I clicked play. My brother's face filled the screen. He was wearing the tie I bought him for his 35th birthday. Preston delivered the lie so smoothly that for a second I understood why Bloomberg had booked him. He sold it, like a bond. The reporter was Harlan Meacham. I had seen him on a tech panel in Austin once. Preston had gone to Yale with him. They were in the studio in Midtown. Coffees on the console. The kind of lighting that makes 40-year-old men look 37. 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Minute 1. Preston, with a small, careful smile. My sister and I conceived the core architecture together. Minute 2. I've been quietly advising ever since. She's brilliant. I'm the quiet, strategic hand. It's one of those classic sibling stories. Minute 2:30. Revenant Lattice runs on a tokenization layer. We whiteboarded it at our family's Christmas dinner, 2017. Each sentence was shaped like a bell. Round, resonant. I designed to sound like it came from inside the company. Then, at 3 minutes and 41 seconds in, he leaned forward and said the thing that would undo him. At Brookline Vale, where I'm VP of Strategy, we use a similar pattern. In our partner compliance tool, you see it more and more in the space. I paused the video. I went back. I watched it again. My brother had just described internal architecture at his current employer on live national financial television, the kind of detail no VP of strategy has clearance to name in public, even in the abstract. It was in his NDA. It was in his onboarding. It was in the non-disclosure he had signed 11 months ago with both initials and a full signature. I timestamped the clip, 3:41, and emailed it to Marie. It was 12:08 a.m. She was already awake. And then, at 3 minutes and 41 seconds in, he made his only real mistake, and I flagged the timestamp before he finished the sentence. Marie's voice at midnight was the same as her voice at noon, which is the only kind of lawyer you should ever hire. 3 things, she said. 1. We do not file an 8K before market opens on the 2nd. That's 8 a.m. Friday. 2. We prepare a correcting press release, cleared by underwriters, timed for 5:55 a.m. the 2nd. 3. We do absolutely nothing before 8 a.m. on January 1st, because Preston's Brookline Vale problem will surface on its own by breakfast. You think? Honey, he quoted internal architecture on live TV. His general counsel is watching that tape right now. So is his chief of staff. So is his crisis firm. They're drafting a termination letter at 1 a.m. One on a holiday. Marin came on the three-way, in pajamas, her kitchen behind her. Give me the timestamps, she said. I'll pull the S1 language. I want risk factor coverage ready before sunrise. Good, Marie said. Marie, I said, what if my dad... He'll be in an ER in an hour and out by noon. Panic attack, not cardiac. How do you know? Because I have watched men like your father for 25 years. They don't have strokes. They have ceilings. They signed off. I held the phone to my chest for a second. Then I drank the tea I had forgotten at 10. Cold. I drank it anyway. If you've made it this far, genuinely thank you. Hit subscribe so the next part doesn't get lost. I'm going to need you to stay with me through the morning. This is where it gets quiet. And quiet is where the truth lives. We hung up at 12:41. I poured the tea I had forgotten about at 10. It was cold. I drank it anyway. The news hit my phone at 5:53, exactly as Mari said it would. I have stopped being surprised when she is right. Marin's text, a TechCrunch screenshot. Headline: Brookline Vale VP Preston Townsend placed on administrative leave after televised disclosure raises NDA concerns. TechCrunch wakes up early on January 1st. Nobody else. Just them. It was a small story on the homepage, above the scroll, below a meme about cold plunges. A second screenshot came in 30 seconds later. From Desmond. My mother's Facebook post, 11:58 p.m. the night before. So proud of my son Preston for finally getting the recognition he deserves. Big things coming in 2026. 47 comments, 47 hearts, Sandra from Rotary, Patty from church. A woman named Judith my mother had known since high school who had typed, "He was always the golden one." I read them all. I didn't type. I screenshotted the whole thread. I saved it in a folder I had been building for 7 years. The folder had a name. For the record, Preston called it Synergy. I called it My Brother Read My Book and Changed the Cover. I made coffee. I stood at the window. Midtown at 6:15 on New Year's morning looks like a city that overslept on purpose. A few cabs. A man walking a corgi in a puffer jacket. I thought, for the first time in a year, about the apartment in Queens. The kitchen table with one short leg, the folded napkin under it, the 5-page spec, the cold email to Marie. 7 years is a long time to be quiet. It is also enough time to be precise. And the news hit my phone at 5:53. My mother's Facebook post was still up. 47 people had congratulated her. I screenshotted it. I did not comment. My mother called me crying at 7:04 and asked me to kill the press release. I told her I was sending flowers instead. He's in the ER. The doctor said it's not his heart. But he's scared, Tori. He's scared. You have to pull it. You haven't sent it yet. You still have time. Mom. Please. I'm glad Dad is okay. I'll send flowers to his room. Tori, you are killing your father. Preston went on Bloomberg. I didn't. That's not... He named Brookline Vale internal architecture on air. That's why he's on leave. That's not me. That's him. You could fix it. And you could say he misspoke. I can't lie on an 8K. Oh, don't hide behind forms. I'm not hiding. I'm filing. She hung up. I sat at the counter. The sun was coming up over the East River. A thin, lemon-colored morning. I called edible arrangements. They were open on January 1st because people on January 1st have regrets. Fruit basket. Greenwich Hospital. Room 314. $127. Tax included. Plus tip. Note card. Get well, Dad. Love, Tori. The woman on the phone said, "Would you like a ribbon?" "Blue, please." "Any particular blue?" "Just blue," I said. "Like a sky." People think you can't love your parents and still disobey them. They've been told obedience is the price of love. In my experience, it's usually the opposite. $127 for an edible arrangement is an expensive way to say, "I love you and also no." It was cheaper than what my family was asking. By 8:30 we had bagels, 2 Zoom squares full of men in Patagonia vests, and a press release that said exactly nothing more than it had to. Lead underwriter from Goldman, clean-shaven, crew neck sweater. The kind of man whose voice sounds like Delaware no matter where he's from. Name, Banks Talbot. Yes, really. Our lead outside counsel. Mari's firm partner. Steel-rimmed glasses. Silent unless you asked him. Marin in the corner of the table in a fleece, hair clipped up, a red pen in her teeth. We need the 8K narrative tight, Banks said. No emotion, no sister-brother arc, no editorial. Agreed, I said. Try this. The company confirms the sole founder of Revenant Lattice is Tori Townsend. She is the sole named inventor of the core patent. Any representation otherwise is inaccurate. 3 sentences. Done. Banks tilted his head. Better with. The company is aware of recent statements inconsistent with its record. Then the clarification. No, Mari said from the Zoom square. Shorter is stronger. Drop every verb that wants to explain. Banks nodded once. Fine. Perfect. We'll run it by 11. File the amendment this afternoon. Wire at 5:55 sharp tomorrow morning. I said. Thank you. Don't thank us yet, Banks said. Thank us when you ring the bell. He looked down at his screen. 2 paragraphs. No adjectives. The best writing of my week. I ate half a bagel. I drank water. I watched Marin cross something out with the red pen and underline something else. Her ring caught the light. Perfect, the banker said. He didn't look up from his screen, which is, in my experience, what perfect men doing their job actually look like. My sister-in-law had been pretending not to see me for 11 years. This morning, she saw me first. Des called at 10. Celeste just texted me. She's at your parents' with the boys. She didn't know about Bloomberg until this morning. She wants you to call her. I'm not going to call her. I know. I'll text. She'd like that. I wrote, whatever you need. I am not your enemy. I'm sorry. I sent it. I went back to the kitchen. I refilled the kettle. 8 minutes later, a long reply. I have documents about accounts of Preston's I never saw. I was going to file Monday. I'm filing tomorrow. Please don't mention this to anyone, just thank you for not pretending I don't exist. I read it twice. I did not reply again. I forwarded the thread to Mari. She wrote back 2 words. Don't touch. I wouldn't have. Celeste's marriage was her forensic accountant's problem, not mine. I didn't need her evidence. I had my own. I had had it for 7 years. My file didn't require hers, but I saved her text. In the folder. For the record. If there is one thing I have learned about women who marry the Preston Townsends of the world, it's this. The moment they stop pretending for themselves, they stop pretending for everyone else a week later. Celeste had been pretending for 11 years. She was on week 12 now. I sat at the window. I watched a delivery bike slide on the frost near the curb. I thought about my brother and my sister-in-law on Christmas morning 4 years ago, when they had still been 2 people who could share a couch. Mari told me not to respond further. I didn't need to. Celeste already knew I was listening. I wrote my father a letter at 1:15 and didn't send it, which is, I think, the most honest thing I had done for him in years. I used the yellow notepad I kept in the kitchen drawer. Ballpoint pen, blue ink, 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1. What I had loved about him. The library in the Greenwich house. The smell of pipe tobacco from before my mother made him stop. The one time he had taken me, just me, to a Yale football game when I was 8, and let me eat 2 hot dogs. Paragraph 2. What I had learned from him. How to read a contract. How to listen for what was being left unsaid. How to say, I'll get back to you, and mean it. Paragraph 3. What I would not do. I would not lie for Preston. I would not sign a new contract with my family to protect a story they had invented 3 days ago. I would not trade my company for the peace of their living room. I folded the sheet in half. I put it in the drawer next to my passport. One day I would read it. He would not. I know some of you watching tonight have had a night like this one. Nobody to vouch for you. Just you and a cup of tea gone cold. They wanted me at the table when I was useful and out of the room when I was inconvenient. On New Year's Eve, I finally agreed. I put the letter in the drawer next to my passport. One day I would read it. He would not. The SEC desk called at 3:47, which meant some senior lawyer in D.C. I'd had chosen to work New Year's Day, and that meant the story had already started to walk. Banks Talbot called me directly. Tori, SEC just pinged. They've seen the Bloomberg clip. They want a risk factor amendment in the S1 before bell ringing Monday. Amendment about what? About your family situation? Language confirming there's no pending co-inventorship claim, otherwise we don't open. Mari? Already drafting, Mari said on the other line. 2 paragraphs. I'll have it to you in 20 minutes. It was 40 pages of legalese in the amendment it sat inside. 2 paragraphs in 1,000. But the paragraphs were what mattered. Mari sent the draft at 4:10. I read. 2 words changed. Banks uploaded to SEC Edgar at 5:12. Adjectives are for people who don't have patents, Mari said. When Banks asked if we should soften the language. The best thing about a patent is that it doesn't cry. That became a running joke for the rest of the afternoon. Marin ordered dumplings from a place in Midtown that refused to acknowledge national holidays. Banks ate them with a fork, which I held against him for about 6 seconds before I remembered he had just saved my IPO on New Year's Day. Mari asked about dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. She said, "Eat anyway." I ate anyway. We reviewed the morning wire schedule one more time. 5:55 a.m., Tory's release. 6 a.m., Bloomberg's correction ticker. 6:30 a.m., the first wire from Reuters. I went home at 9. The streets were empty. The moon was thin. We filed the amendment at 5:12. 2 paragraphs. No adjectives. The best writing of my week. Preston called from a number I didn't know, which is what men do when they have already been told no once by their real phone. 6:20 p.m. I was home. I picked up on the third ring. Tori, listen. Okay, listen to me. I'm listening. Retract the press release. I'll walk back Bloomberg. I'll say I misspoke. Stressed. Jet-lagged. Some excuse. We call it a misunderstanding. Dad's okay. Mom's okay. Celeste is being dramatic. We do this as a family. You violated the Brookline Vale NDA on national television. That's between me and them. You're on administrative leave? Temporary. The press release was cleared by Goldman. It wires at 5:55 tomorrow. There isn't an undo button. Tori. Preston. You're really going to do this? I've been doing this since 2018. You just weren't looking. Silence. A long one. I could hear a radiator hissing somewhere in his background. A door. Someone. Maybe Celeste. Maybe a lawyer. Maybe nobody. Moving around behind him. You could have been kinder about it, he said finally. I could have, I said. I'm tired. I hung up. Let me tell you how to tell when a man has run out of moves. He starts calling the thing you've already done a misunderstanding. After he hung up, I sat for a while. I thought about the Preston I'd had at 9, the one who had taught me to ride a bike on the sloped driveway in Greenwich, the one who had snuck me out of my room at 12 to watch a meteor shower in the backyard. There had been a brother once. I remembered. Somewhere he had traded that brother for whatever this version was. I didn't know when. Probably gradually. Probably in pieces I hadn't seen. I've been doing this since 2018, I said. You just weren't looking. He hung up. I set the phone down. I did not shake. At 4:30 in the morning, Marin and I were both awake, and we didn't talk about the company. We talked about her daughter's college essay. Her daughter, Clara, was applying early decision to Bard. The essay was about a summer spent working at a bakery in Rhinebeck, and the particular physics of croissant dough, about how cold the butter needed to be, and how patient the person holding the butter. She's going to get in, I said. She's going to get in. Tell her congratulations in advance. I won't. I'll wait. That was Marin. We were quiet for a while. I could hear her coffee maker running in her kitchen in Brooklyn. The hum was comforting in a way I hadn't known I needed. My grandparents had a farm outside Burlington, I said. I used to watch my grandmother gut a chicken on the porch when I was 7. She'd tell me, "Tori, the knife has to be clean, and it has to be sharp, and you have to be sure." I didn't know what she meant for a long time. You know now. I know now. At 5:55, the press release went out. By 6:06, Bloomberg had a correction running in the ticker. The words moved without me. 22 outlets picked it up in 11 minutes. Reuters, WSJ Axios, Forbes. My phone lit up and lit up and lit up. I did not pick up. I laid out a clean shirt, a pressed blazer, a pair of loafers I had bought for this week and not yet worn. At 5:55, the press release went out. By 6:06, Bloomberg had a correction running in the ticker. The words moved without me. And then the morning started to arrive in pieces. My phone rang 17 times that morning. My mother. I did not pick up. I was at the mirror, learning how to knot a different kind of scarf. Mom. 17 calls. Dad. 2. Preston. 4. Desmond. 1. Celeste. 0. But a text. Thank you. Break a leg. Dez's message. Aunt Diane just posted an "I've been hacked" notice on Facebook, LOL. She deleted Preston, the Golden Sun post, the birthday post, every tag from the last 3 years. Took about 9 minutes. A second forward. Brookline Vale's General Counsel, to our lawyers. Not to me directly. 1 paragraph. We have terminated Mr. Townsend's employment effective immediately. Revenant Lattice is not a party to any action by Brookline Vale. We will pursue internal remediation only. I read it twice. I was not a party. That was the sentence that meant the most. My brother's job was his. His NDA was his. His severance, or lack of it, was his. My company had never been touched by him except in one interview on one morning, and even that touch was being surgically removed from the public record by people who had nothing to do with me. I put on the black blazer, I put on the loafers, I put on nothing else. No scarf, no jewelry. I went down to the lobby. A car was already waiting. The driver stepped out, opened the door, said, "Congratulations, ma'am." He didn't know what for. It didn't matter. He was right anyway. If this is your morning, wear the pants you think look best. The pants are a decision. I stepped into the car. The morning was gray and cold and exactly itself. The bell rang at 9:30 and confetti fell, and the CNBC anchor said my name with the same rhythm she used for everyone else, which was the thing that almost made me cry. I stood on the podium with Marin on my left, Mari on my right. 3 of my earliest employees behind me, Nico, the first engineer, who had come on at a 40% pay cut because he had said yes to a bad chair and a vision. Claire, who had run our first demo for an insurance company that had laughed at us and then called us back 6 months later. Emmett, who had kept our servers running for 2 years in a closet before we moved to Chelsea. The camera crew from CNBC was waiting. The anchor, a woman in a red blazer with an earpiece and a clipboard, said my name. Tori Townsend, sole founder and CEO of Revenant Lattice, a cybersecurity AI firm, priced its IPO last night at $18 a share. Valuation, $1.9 billion. The bell, 9:30. Confetti, blue and silver, the company's colors, because Marin had insisted. Somewhere in a Greenwich living room, my mother stood up and walked out. My father stayed in the chair. He did not speak. I found out later from Desmond. He had been there, sitting across from them. He had flown in on the red-eye, because that was the kind of man he was. He said the room went very quiet. He said my father watched the whole 5-minute segment without blinking. He said, when it was over, he just set down his coffee and put his hands in his lap. Somewhere in a Greenwich living room, my mother stood up and walked out. My father stayed in the chair. He did not speak. That, too, was a kind of answer. My cousin called at 10:14 and told me what my father had said in the hospital. I had been ready for anger. I had not been ready for sorrow. "I just left the ER," Des said. "Uncle Reese is fine. They're discharging him. He said something, Tor. I don't know if you want to hear it." "Say it." He said, "She was always going to win." And then he said, "I just didn't want it to be against us." I did not cry. I thanked Des. I hung up. I walked out onto the small stone balcony off the trading floor VIP room. Broad Street was cold under a bleach-pale sun. The air bit at my collarbones. I exhaled, and my breath hung like paper. Let me tell you something about a specific kind of father. He can see his daughter clearly only when she is standing somewhere he cannot reach her. I have stopped hoping this will change. Hope, yin in my experience, is for things that can still be rebuilt. I stepped out onto the balcony. The breath I exhaled looked exactly like the breath my father had been unable to catch the night before. I don't know what you call that. Nothing, probably. Inside the VIP room, the crowd had thinned. Marin was on the phone with our head of investor relations. Mari was eating a croissant with the same unhurried attention she gave to a contract. Nico was staring out the window at the bronze statue of George Washington, looking like a man who had forgotten where he was. If you're still here, I want you to know, 97% of people who start a video don't finish it. You did. That means something to me. If this story has given you something, would you hit subscribe and stay for the rest? There's tea left. In the Wall Street Journal posted at 12:40. My brother's career ended in a 4-paragraph news item written by a reporter who had never met him. Headline: Brookline Vale terminates Viv P after ND a breach on live interview. 4 paragraphs. Preston's name in the first. Revenant Lattice in the second, with the word unrelated attached. 3 sentences of context. 1 sentence of, Mr. Townsend did not respond to requests for comment. His LinkedIn disappeared 90 minutes later. I watched it happen in real time. 3,412 connections to 0. The profile picture, the one with the tie I had bought him, went last. At 1 p.m., Celeste filed for divorce. I found out through Des. She had called the lawyer from the Greenwich kitchen while my mother had been making soup for my father. She had had the papers drafted in November. Mari called. Say nothing. Okay. 72 hours of silence. Market has to settle. Okay. I've learned this one a little late in life, and I hope you learn it sooner. Silence is not weakness. Silence is an answer that has already been notarized. The Wall Street Journal posted at 12:40. My brother's career ended in a 4-paragraph news item written by a reporter who had never met him. Celeste filed at 1. She did not need me. She had needed only to know I would not lie for him. I had not lied for him in 7 years. And then Mom sent her last email of the week. Subject: You may have chosen the wrong family entirely. Body: 3 sentences. No signature. I did not open it. Mari had asked me not to. I did not need to. I drove to Greenwich and sat in the car for 28 minutes before I went in, which was, and I think, the most boring act of courage of my life. The house was the same house. White clapboard, black shutters, the Christmas wreath still on the door, a BMW in the driveway, my father's, a Subaru, my mother's. Preston's Tesla was not there. He had driven back to the apartment he and Celeste kept in Stamford to sign papers he had not expected to sign. My father was in the library, reading a book he was not reading. My mother was in the kitchen. I let myself in. They did not stand. I put the folder on the dining room table, 3 documents. A notarized copy of U.S. Patent 10,847,000XXX, cover page visible. A printout of the press release that had wired that morning. A sealed letter from Mari's firm, addressed to my parents jointly. requesting, as a matter of corporate record, that the family refrain from mentioning me or the company in any media or social posts for the next 18 months. Not a gag order, not an ultimatum. A polite, notarized request. My mother came in from the kitchen. "What are you doing here?" "I came to tell you face to face before the paperwork arrived." "Tori, I'm not here to argue. You're so cold. I've been warm for 34 years. I'm taking today off." I walked out. Justice never shouts. Justice only arrives on time, with the right paperwork, and in loafers. My mother cried with real tears. That was the hard part. "I've been warm for 34 years. I'm taking today off." I left the folder. I walked out. I did not slam the door. I did not need to. I drove to Park Slope that night and gave my cousin a letter I hadn't sent. He said he had one of his own. And we sat with them for 10 minutes and didn't say anything. Dez's brownstone, 3rd floor. A warm yellow kitchen lamp. His wife, Rachel, had gone to bed with a cold. The girls were asleep. Thumbs in mouths, matching bunny pajamas. We sat at the kitchen table. Des made coffee. I set the yellow pad in front of him, 3 paragraphs. My father's name at the top. "Keep it. One day he might need to read it. Or not. It doesn't belong at my apartment." Des opened a drawer, pulled out an envelope. It was older. The stamp had been licked on and never mailed. "For my dad," he said. "Same reason." We sat. The coffee went lukewarm. Neither of us drank it. Outside, someone's dog barked once. "Yours is Uncle Bill?" I asked. "Yeah. I remember him." "Yeah. Okay. Okay." That was the whole conversation, most of it. And people think unfinished letters are cowardice. They've usually never had to write one. In my experience, the ones you don't send are the ones that save you. I drove back to Tribeca at midnight. The drive was quiet. The tunnel was quiet. The city was doing its small, constant work of not noticing me. Some letters, I think, are for the drawer. Not every truth needs a stamp. A week later, we did the math. Because math is how I grieve. Preston, unemployed. Moved out of the Stamford apartment into a corporate housing unit Brookline Vale had, by courtesy, offered for 90 days. Brookline Vale's internal legal team had filed a $400,000 breach of NDA action against him personally. His attorney had advised him to settle. Celeste, temporary custody 80/20, her lawyer, a woman named Esther Kilbourne, who had been recommended by my old college roommate, which I learned by accident, had the forensic disclosures locked inside 48 hours. My parents, Greenwich, quiet. My mother had unfriended me on Facebook on the 5th of January. My father hadn't. Revenant Lattice, opened at 18, closed day 1 at 2740. Paper valuation $2.8 billion, 94 employees with their equity intact. My personal net worth on paper, somewhere around $400 million, locked up for 180 days. I didn't spend it. It sat in a line on a document. 94 people kept their equity. That is the only number in this story I care about. Marin and I sat in my office the following Tuesday with bad coffee and a whiteboard. We went through the list of what the press had called us, each the list of what we had called ourselves, and the list of what was actually true. "Numbers match," Marin said. "They do. Let's run the company." We ran the company. My mother called at 8 in the evening and gave me the closest thing to acknowledgement I would ever get, wrapped in an insult, the way she always did. January 14th. I had taken a bath. I had a towel around my shoulders and wet hair and cold tea. Her name came up on the screen. I almost didn't pick up. I picked up. "Hello, Mom." She didn't cry this time. Her voice was thinner than it had been the last time, tired in a way that wasn't staged. "You were right about your brother. I'm not apologizing. I'm calling to say I was right about one thing too. You are not like anyone in this family. I am grateful to you for noticing. That's not a compliment. I know. Silence. About 10 seconds. The kind of silence where a mother is deciding whether to hang up or say one more thing. She said one more thing. Your father reads your filings. Every quarter. He doesn't tell anyone. He reads them. Thank you for telling me. You could have been kinder about this, Tori. I did not answer. Silence was the answer I had been trained never to give her, and the one that had always been true. She hung up. I called Marie, not to cry, to say thanks. Marie said, "You did the boring thing, now go live." "You are not like anyone in this family," she said. "I know," I answered. It turned out that was all there was. My father's handwriting has always been the handwriting of a man who bills by the minute. The letter was 3 lines long. That, from him, was a sonnet. It arrived on the 21st, Greenwich return address. My name written in his careful capitals on the envelope. The capitals of a man who had drafted wills for 40 years. Inside, 1 sheet. Yellow legal pad paper, 3 lines. The patent is in your name. The firm is yours. I was wrong about the shape of you. I hope that is a starting place. You do not need to write back. And at the bottom, not Dad. Not Reese. Signed, Reese Townsend, Esquire. I read it at the kitchen counter. I put it on top of the microwave. Then I moved it to a shelf. The shelf where I kept the small stack of things I would not throw away and would not look at often. I waited 48 hours. And I did not write back. 48 hours later, I sent another fruit basket. Note card. Noted. Love, Tori. That was the truest thing I had said to him in a decade. The arrangement cost $99 because the first one had been holiday priced. I tipped the delivery man $30 through the app. I did not write back. 48 hours later, I sent another fruit basket. It said, noted. It was the truest thing I had said to him in a decade. 6 months later, the only family news I got came through my cousin, which was not an exile. It was an irrigation system. I was in Half Moon Bay for a founder retreat. June. Fog up to my knees on a beach that was supposed to be sunny. Des texted me an update while I was standing in wet sand with a cup of coffee. Preston had started as a broker at a mid-tier firm in Hartford. Salary $62,000. He had the boys every other weekend. He had moved in with a college roommate named Jared. He was, Des said, trying. My mother had, of all things, joined Al-Anon. She had not told me. Des had been told by his own mother, who had been told by Sandra, from Rotary. The chain of women was doing its work. My father kept his distance. We had not spoken since before Christmas. I checked my email on the beach. Buried in a folder labeled Reader Mail, a single message from a woman in Ohio. Hi Tori, I heard you on a podcast last week. I am the oldest daughter of 3. My brothers are 38 and 36. I have 2 engineering degrees and a small business. My parents have never visited it. I am writing to say thank you. I forwarded it to Marin. She wrote back, "This is why we did the boring thing." A woman in Ohio wrote to me. She was the oldest daughter of 3. She said thank you. I forwarded it to Marin. Marin wrote back, "This is why we did the boring thing." If you ask me now what I learned, and people do, more than I expected, I always say the same thing. Dignity is not a style. Dignity is a filing system. Dignity is a signed assignment agreement on the day the employee starts. Dignity is a patent filed before the patent is needed. Dignity is a D&O questionnaire that takes 11 minutes and saves 11 months. Dignity is a notarized copy of a document placed on a dining room table, quietly, while your mother stands in the kitchen doorway. Dignity is the boring thing. It is the thing nobody applauds. It is done before the story starts. At Revenant Lattice, we hired our 40th new employee that June, a junior engineer named Sam, 24 years old, 3 months out of Pittsburgh. His onboarding packet was 12 pages long. On page 1, we had printed in 12-point font, in a small box with a light blue border. Rule number 1, sign your assignment agreement on day 1. Rule number 2, no one in your family is exempt from rule number 1. Sam signed. I watched him sign. He looked up and said, "Is that a real rule?" "The realest one," I said. "Okay," he said. He went down the hall and logged into his laptop and started the next 7 years of his career. I wrote 2 rules for new hires. The second rule was the first rule, extended to the people who will test it the hardest. 1 year later, I hosted New Year's Eve. 7 people. Roast chicken. Nothing televised. My apartment. A table I had bought in February. An oak thing from a guy in Bushwick who made furniture out of old barn beams. 2 candles. A linen tablecloth my grandmother had kept in a trunk for 40 years. Marin, Mari, Des, and Rachel. Nico. Sam, the junior engineer from Pittsburgh, because I had asked him if he had plans, and he had said, "Just my roommate," and I couldn't leave him to a roommate on New Year's. The chicken was from a farm near Hudson. The potatoes were from a farm 1 town over from that. The wine was unfussy. The conversation was too. At 11:58, we stood up. Champagne. The bottle I had kept from the IPO morning, untouched, in the back of the refrigerator for 12 months. Marin raised her glass. To rule 1. Everyone laughed. Sam laughed too, catching the reference 3 seconds late, but catching it. Hi, he was going to be fine. Midnight came. Fireworks somewhere over the Hudson again, small ones, far. I pulled my phone out at 12:01. Nothing. No Preston, no Dad, no Mom, no Des, because he was 8 feet from me. I turned the phone off. I put it in a drawer. I went back to the table. At 12:01, I checked my phone. It was quiet. I turned it off. I sat back down. The chicken was still warm. If I have one thing to leave you with, it's this, and I'll keep it short. The way all true things fit in a drawer, not on a billboard. There are many kinds of family. There is the one you are born into. There is the one you choose. There is the one you build out of bagels and spreadsheets at 8:30 on a morning you were supposed to be off. You are allowed to have all 3. You are allowed to lean more on one than on the others. You are allowed to let one rest for a while. You are allowed to read your father's 3-line letter and put it on a shelf without answering. You are not making everyone uncomfortable. You are making the people who relied on your comfort uncomfortable. That is a fact about them. Not about you. Let me tell you something about the word uncomfortable. It is a word people use when they have lost a privilege and cannot yet say so out loud. When you hear it, in a text, in an email, in a mouth, you do not have to argue with it. You do not have to prove anything. You only have to notice who is using the word and in what direction it is pointing, and whether you are the discomfort or whether you are simply the thing that will no longer disappear to keep someone else comfortable. You are not the discomfort. You are the end of a long, quiet arrangement. That is the thing I wish I had known at 24. That's the story. That's all of it. No twist left in the drawer. We IPO'd. My brother lost his job. My sister-in-law found her spine. My mother went to a meeting. My father wrote 3 lines. My cousin kept 2 letters that would never be mailed. I host dinners now. I don't host Christmas. I don't know yet what I will do with Christmas. Maybe I will not do anything with it for a while. Maybe I will do something small and new, with people who don't ask me to disappear. Time will tell. Somewhere out there, probably out where you are watching, there is a woman who has been the warm one for 30 years. There is a woman whose family has been telling her she is too much, or too cold, or too sensitive, or whatever shape word they need her to be, or depending on the afternoon. There is a woman who has been preparing quietly to stop being uninvited to her own life. If that is you, sign your paperwork, file your patent, whatever your patent is. Put the documents in a folder called For the Record. Hire the boring lawyer. Tell no one. When the call comes, and it will, you will not shake. If you've sat with me to the end, you already understand. Remember this for yourself. Tell me in the comments. What did your family call uncomfortable that was really just you? I'll read them all. And come back tomorrow. I'll put the kettle on. There's more tea in the pot.